What's up, y'all? It's your girl Jay Renee with Prison Riot Radio. I hope that you're doing well. Today we got a brother on the phone by the name of Joseph Carroll that is going to be talking to us about the foster care system in North Carolina. Anyone that's been following me knows that I definitely have something to say when it comes to that system. It's called different things in different places: CPS, ACS, things like that. I've been active protesting against the things that ACS do, CPS does. If you look at the numbers, they'll compel you to get involved. But we got a brother here that has been impacted by that. Okay, so we're going to give him an opportunity to share some of his experiences with us and some of the statistics that are going on in North Carolina. All right, we appreciate you for coming to chat with us, brother. Tell the people a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Okay.
All right, we lost signal. Give him a second.
So my
It's
mother is from upstate. She's from New York, and my dad was from here in North Carolina. Uh, they met. I was the product of it. So I never knew my mother really, as she had a drug addiction problem, and my dad was the alcoholic. So we moved from Florida to Palatine, Illinois, which is outside of Chicago, and we lived up there for a couple of years until my dad's mom got sick and we moved down here to North Carolina. In '94, my dad had diabetes complications, and my stepmother placed me in foster care 40 some days after the funeral. Uh, so I went in right before my 11th birthday, and in foster care here in North Carolina, it's essentially the training ground for a prison environment. The mentality that the children develop in a lot of because you don't always get placed in a foster home. So in the group homes, the mentality that a lot of children develop is the same mentality that a lot of people in prison have. It's the survival of the fittest. Now, not all group homes are bad. There are some good ones, but a majority of them are like the best place. The best thing to describe it is kind of like a waiting facility for a foster home, and those in range also have a different environment. Some of them are good and some of them are not. Uh, I was blessed to have one really great foster family, and they still keep in touch with me today while I'm serving a life sentence in prison. But I've also been in bad ones where you have to figure out what you're going to eat for dinner that night. I've lived all over the state of North Carolina. I've been in somewhere about 25 different placements, and as much as 4 different placements in 1 year. It's just the statistics when I went through foster care were not very likely that any of us were going to survive. I've ran into a handful of guys in prison that I was in foster care with, even though we weren't from the same counties. We were in various homes or foster homes together. And if I remember right, when I went through that, the average was 1 in 3.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
And by made it, I mean they didn't wind up incarcerated. They didn't wind up dead. They were alive and on the street. That doesn't mean they had marriage, kids, house, job. They just were not one of the other two. Now, in the group homes, they have rating systems 1 to 5. 5 being like a supermax prison, really. So the later years, as I got older in foster care, the later years I spent in level 4s and 5 group homes, and you don't go to public school because they're deemed either too dangerous for school environment, or you're so far behind on the grade level you're supposed to be at that you can't catch up. So they just do homeschooling.
Okay.
Most of them have fire around the house, some fence. You got curfews and whatnot. You don't get to do a lot of outside society setting outings. Like you might get to go to a park, but it won't be, say, like Memorial Day when the park's full. You won't get to go then. They'll wait till it's less crowded. So if you do cause a scene, there's no witness.
I understand. So let me ask you, well, statistically, I'm try to make sure I share some numbers. They show that anyone that's in that system, child welfare system, CPS, ACS, DPS, DFIS, and stuff like that. Yeah, I was just discussing, the pipeline that has been shown statistically from those type of settings that men and women find themselves in in prison and stuff. I wanted to ask you though, the way that they had y'all isolated and ostracized y'all pretty much, did they have any type of mental health care or mental health facilitator or anything like that? Or did they just try to fix the problem by limiting what y'all were allowed to do and where you were allowed to go?
Okay, so they took me to see, like, I saw mental health, but you don't, as a young child, children don't normally open up to new adults or strange adults, especially somebody they've never met. So, and I would go see a therapist, and then when I would start to get comfortable with them enough to start opening up, I would move to a different, either a foster home or a group home, and then I would have a new therapist, and then it would be starting the process over. So you never make any ground, you never make any headway.
All right.
So, like in the county I was in, they would try to get help.
This call is from a North Carolina correctional facility.
Troubled teens or young children, but you wouldn't really get any help because you could never make any headway.
All right, I can understand that. So tell me more about this level system that y'all had. You said it was 1 through 5?
Yeah. So between the ages of 14 and 18, when you age out, I spent most of my foster care, those years I spent on level 4 and 5 group homes. And by then, a lot of foster families, they want young children, or they want, especially if they're trying to shop you around for adoption. A lot of people want their a few months old to 7, roughly. And most of the foster parents, they want that young too, because as a child, you can impart your opinion, your beliefs, and stuff like that to a child. But between the ages of 7 to 10, a kid starts getting set in the way they're going to act. And then anything over, especially a child that's been in the system for over a year, we become jaded. like our opinion. We're always critical. We always think the worst is going to happen, you know. And we, most of foster kids suffer from abandonment issues. We never think anything's going to last, so we don't go in there with high hopes of being able to maintain. Our social skills are lacking. Due to, like, the last school grade I actively participated in and passed on my own was 8th grade. From 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, they just passed me to get rid of me. Most of the education for most foster kids is severely lacking. You know, most of the kids in foster care, not only do they wind up in prison as adults, but at some point in time during most of them's juvenile years, they've been incarcerated in either a detention center, the juvenile block in the county jail, or one of DSS's favorite things is they'll do an involuntary commitment to a psych hospital to get the legal troubles kind of swept under a rug, so there's no charges taken out.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a pretty picture at all. And like I said, there are a few good places, but they're few and far in between. You know, you figure in North Carolina there's 100 counties, and most, if not all, the group homes that I was in, were the houses themselves were situated in either the projects or the ghetto. So you learn to become a criminal real early and real quick.
Mm-hmm. I got you.
So,
So what are some more things that we should know about that when it comes to, so what does North Carolina call it? Because in New York it's ACS, then you got CPS, other places. What is it called in North Carolina?
okay, so they're trying to classify it under the Department of Human and Health Services, but it's actually the Department of Social Services is what it's called down here, DSS.
Okay. What's some more things that we should know about it?
The what?
What are some more things that we should know about the DSS?
Okay, so the few group homes that I was in where I got to go to public school, they handicap the child when he gets to school. So even if your IQ level is normal or higher, you don't get to go to regular classes.
Mm-hmm.
They put you in LD class, or what they call an easy class. And that's kind of just to keep you out of the way and away from regular population in the school.
Okay. You had to go through this type of situation? Oh, I think we might have lost you again, bro. So, did you was this a situation that you had to encounter where you were like off from the rest of the school?
Yeah. Every time I was enrolled into a public school, I was placed in LD classes, learning disabled classes.
Okay. They said you had a learning disability, or did they just put you there because why did they put you in those classes? Or what did they say?
Okay. Most of the time I was placed in those classes because they wanted to keep me separate from the general population of the school.
Did they say why?
It wasn't No, it wasn't. I never actually was or diagnosed with a learning disability.
Okay. So I'm gonna ask you a personal question. You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Like, how did that make you feel?
Um, then I didn't really care because my attitude was if a teacher couldn't get my attention within the first 5 minutes of class, I was a lost cause. But if the teacher could come in and make the subject interesting, then I was hooked. I would pay attention, I would participate, the whole nine. Uh, so, and not like it varies kid to kid in foster care. Some kids are really adamant about school because they don't want to stay in the environments where like I said, most of the houses are in urban areas. They're in the hood. So kids will be like, I don't want to live here my whole life. So they pay attention in school. They understand what education's worth, and they excel.
Right.
Then you got some kids, myself included. Like I was ADHD, and if you couldn't catch my attention, then I wasn't there, even if I was.
Mm-hmm.
And now social services tries to keep a majority of kids on medications to help with stuff like that, but a lot of times that doesn't work either.
Okay. So, bro, I wanna tell us something else that you haven't been able to talk about when it comes to the DSS and here in North Carolina.
Okay. So in my county, okay, so I will say that they do try to do good. The women that handled my case were really great. They had caring, but it was 100 kids to one social worker. It's just like the prison system. They've got 100 plus people on a programmer's caseload, and there's only so much that they can do. They always remember your birthday. Christmas comes around. My social workers did things just for me, and I'm pretty sure they did it for all their caseload, but they made it seem like I was more important.
Mm-hmm.
They spent time with you. Now, my last social worker, and she was very rare because I hadn't seen many that did this. Like, she made, during her monthly trips to visit the group home or the foster home I was in to take down reports, she would talk to me after speaking with the authority of the house. She would sit me down and ask me questions. How did I like it? What was going on? If I was in public school, she would ask me about school. Was I involved in any after-school programs? And I can't say all the counties are like that because some of the counties in North Carolina are much more urban than the rest. The county I was in was a rural county, so I guess they were more in depth to it because they didn't have the caseload that some of the urban counties had.
Mm-hmm.
So,
okay.
and that's some of good.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I remember some years that they did a picnic in the park during the summer months for the kids. They'd get us together and do a cookout. And then it was just, that was the good stuff. And not everything was good. The moving, like we lived in trash bags. Most of